overall syndicate bosses and underbosses. I have a dossier on every man in this room.
Willem Dafoe has been in 9 horror movies over the course of his career. His contributions to the genre have been praised and criticized in equal measure, so they can be ranked from worst to best. The veteran of the movie business has spent years balancing artsy independent projects with more popular ones. Dafoe has been in everything from films by Lars von Trier to superhero movies by Sam Raimi. He's been able to balance the mainstream and the experimental in a way that few actors can. Today, we rank some of his best films. First, Nightmare Alley 2021, Death Note 2017, and Daybreakers 2009. Guillermo del Toro has made a lot of scary movies, from coming-of-age stories to ghost stories to action movies about vampires, but none are as scary as Nightmare Alley. The movie starts out as a detective thriller, but after an hour, the plot takes a turn for the appropriately scary and never goes back. Willem Dafoe is as creepy as ever in this unremittingly dark tale, but he's only as unsettling as Cate Blanchett, Bradley Cooper, and the rest of the ensemble cast morally ambiguous monsters. This version from Netflix has a lot going for it. Surprisingly, there's a lot of blood and it's shown with glee. Nat Wolff and Margaret Qualley, who is his love interest, are both likable and interesting. Lakeith Stanfield is as reliable as ever, and Willem Dafoe steals the show as the sort of campy villain. Due to the many changes from the original manga and anime, Death Note was still a huge letdown for fans of the original manga and anime, as well as fans of the first live-action movie version. Daybreakers could have been a great book. The ambitious sci-fi horror movie is set in an alternate future where vampires are the most common species. It tells the confusing story of a heroic vampire trying to find a cure for his kind, while Willem Dafoe's cured vampire leads a human resistance. Even though they're not as tame as the vampires in the Twilight series, the bloodsuckers and Daybreakers are not dangerous at all. This is a problem when they are the main characters of the movie, because the vampires in Daybreakers are neither likable enough to root for nor scary enough to be afraid of. This leaves this Willem Dafoe horror movie stuck in an awkward middle ground. Next, Animorph 2008, The Grand Budapest Hotel, and Mississippi Burning. Animorph is a dark psychological horror movie that tries to cash in on the success of the Saw series, but it doesn't really deliver. Willem Dafoe plays a detective who's trying to figure out why a case feels so familiar. The story is complicated, but it isn't as gory as some of its competitors. The story of Animorph is also too long and confusing to be very interesting, making it the actor's least important horror film. The Grand Budapest Hotel, a movie by Wes Anderson, is about an old hotel concierge and a young bellboy who work together. It's a funny and exciting comedy with some of Hollywood's best actors. Dafoe is great as the deadly assassin J.G. Joplin, who has been hired to kill the hotel concierge because he has inherited a valuable painting. Dafoe shows the most dangerous side of himself, along with great eyeshadow and leather, to give Anderson's usual sweet film a wonderful punk rock pinch of darkness. The Grand Budapest Hotel was well liked by critics, and it won 5 BAFTAs and 4 Oscars. Based on an infamous murder investigation that rocked a Mississippi town in 1964, the social message of Mississippi Burning has only become more salient since its release in 1988. In this crime thriller, Dafoe plays Alan Ward, one of 2 white FBI agents sent to look into the deaths of 3 black civil rights workers. This 1988 movie got mixed reviews because it was about a white savior. Some of the movie's ideas haven't held up over time, but it was also praised for its powerful performances and impressive cinematography, for which Peter Bijou won an Oscar. Moving on, John Wick, The Lighthouse, and Spider-Man. John Wick is one of the most important action movies of the last 10 years. It has a cult following, which has helped the franchise grow to 4 movies, but none of that would have been possible without the first movie, in which Dafoe played Marcus, a former high-class assassin who taught John everything he knows. Dafoe does a great job with the role. He shows how long Marcus and John have known each other, but he's still ambivalent enough that the audience is never sure which side he's on. This is Dafoe at the top of his action game. He is both mysterious and very likable. Julian Roman says that The Lighthouse, one of Dafoe's most recent roles, is a brilliantly acted that is a descent into madness and has a lot of style. This black and white psychological thriller is directed by Robert Eggers, who is also known for making The Witch, which was loved by critics. Dafoe and Robert Pattinson play lighthouse keepers who slowly give in to the loneliness and isolation of their job. The movie was praised for its strange images and masterful acting, and Dafoe did a great job of capturing the profane, drunk madness of a mad pirate-like man. Spider-Man, which came out in 2002, gave Dafoe one of his most well-known roles. The movie introduced him to a new generation of moviegoers and millions of superhero movie fans. Dafoe plays a scientist with a lot of money named Norman Osborn. To make himself stronger, he takes an unapproved drug and becomes the Green Goblin. Dafoe's character is still seen as one of the best comic book movie villains of all time. His face and voice fit the character almost too well, and even even made a comeback in Spider-Man No Way Home, which was praised. Next up, The Last Temptation of Christ, Antichrist, and The Florida Project. The Last Temptation of Christ, a movie by Martin Scorsese based on a fictional book by Nikos Kazantzakis about Jesus, has Dafoe's most controversial role. Dafoe's performance as the title character was praised for its emotional depth and commitment, but he didn't get an Oscar nomination. Maybe this was because of the film's controversial portrayal of Jesus' temptations, which caused public outrage, including protests from right-wing Christian groups, anonymous death threats, and bans in many countries. Still, Scorsese's masterful direction and Dafoe's humanizing performance, which put the focus on how hard Jesus' decisions were, make the epic film a great story about sacrifice and desire. Dafoe doesn't shy away from making controversial movies, so it was only natural for him to work with Enfant Terrible and art house darling Lars von Trier, who has since been basically blacklisted for his disgustingly intensive and supremely remarks. Antichrist is a simple story about a couple who move to a cabin in the woods after their son dies. His character isn't named, but Dafoe plays a man who sees strange things while his wife starts to act violently and has a thing for sadomasochism. The movie was written by von Trier while he was in the hospital for depression. It shows how hard it is for many people to deal with depression and anxiety. The Florida Project is a movie about growing up that is both sweet and sad. It was directed by Sean Baker, who also made Red Rocket and Tangerine. In the movie, Dafoe plays Bobby Hicks, the manager of a rundown motel next to Disney World called Magic Castle. The movie shows how hard it is for a single mother and her naughty daughter to make ends meet, both financially and emotionally. Dafoe got his third Best Supporting Actor Academy Award nomination for one of his most praised and humane roles.
You heard me.
Get back inside, Mooney.
When I say register.
Finally, The Boondock Saints and Platoon. The Boondock Saints is a classic piece of culture. It is an action thriller about two Irish Catholic brothers who become vigilantes and kill members of the mafia to clean up Boston. Even though it got terrible reviews when it came out in 1999, The Boondock Saints has become one of the most important cult movies of the 90s, with fans who know every word. In the movie, Dafoe plays FBI agent Paul Smecker, who is sent to find two troublesome brothers. Smecker is one of the most memorable characters in movies, and Dafoe gives him more manic and weird energy than anyone else in the movie. Even though the movie isn't perfect, it's impossible to deny that The Boondock Saints has a unique point of view and has had a huge impact on pop culture and movies. Platoon by Oliver Stone has been called one of the best war movies ever made. Stone wrote the screenplay based on his experiences as an infantryman in Vietnam. He was the first Vietnam veteran to make a Hollywood movie, and it was about how war affects soldiers' minds. Platoon was praised for its political message, the realism of its battle scenes, and the performances of Charlie Sheen, Tom Berenger, and of course, Willem Dafoe. Dafoe was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his sympathetic portrayal of Sergeant Elias, an idealistic but troubled army officer who takes Charlie Sheen's character under his wing. The scene in which he falls to his knees has become one of the most famous images in all of film. Platoon is a great story about courage and one of the most important movies about trauma and war. It also has one of the best performances by Willem Dafoe. Well, that's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Till next time, cheers.